Actually, we are going to be doing a special interview here in just a second with the owner of the Fit Pro Wrestling Academy out of Southern California. He is a former XPW superstar, as well as he has been seen on Wrestling Society X and in TNA Wrestling. Without further ado, let's welcome to the line Ryan Katz. How are you doing?
Doing excellent. What's up, JT? What's up, Andrew? How are you guys doing today?
Doing wonderful, man. Looking forward to the interview. Now, you just got done doing your own podcast, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I started doing this thing called the Off the Rope Slamcast over at HollywoodOutlaws.com. We do this every Wednesday. It's a video podcast. Every week they seem to be changing the technology on us. So I'd say in the next few weeks it'll be what it's supposed to be, and it'll be a full-fledged, video, I guess you'd call it a recap show, talking about wrestling.
That's awesome. It seems like a lot more workers are starting to get involved in the podcasting these days.
I think the way that the world has worked and social networking has worked, you got to do what you can to get out there and get the exposure and get your, get your videos or your podcasts or whatever it is spreading out to the people. So everyone's trying to get in there just to give themselves a little bit more exposure, help them build a fan base so they can draw a little bit more money when they go wrestle on the scene.
Yeah. Now, I got to ask you, growing up, were you a wrestling fan, and was wrestling your first career choice? If not, what was?
Oh, yeah. Growing up, I was a huge wrestling fan. I got to say, since I was 2, 3 years old, I don't know exactly, when I got into it, but I, since being the littlest child I could remember, always remember waking up Saturday and Sunday mornings, running into my parents' bedroom, jumping into bed to go watch the either AWA or NWA and go watch the Road Warriors. That was the team. Legion of Doom, Hawk and Animal, Precious Paul Ellering. That was the team that I was all about as a little kid.
Nice. Now, was wrestling your first career choice?
Oh, I don't know if I'd say it was my first career choice because being a smaller guy, I wasn't actually exposed to indie wrestling until after college. So I always thought I was way too small to get involved in the biz. So my first career choice of what I really ever wanted to do was become a game show host. I went to college, studied broadcast journalism with the intent to become a game show host. And it was then that I started doing my own wrestling radio show, and that's where I figured, I may be too small to get in the ring, but I can, get involved in the broadcasting side of wrestling, and then it became what I'd say my second career choice. And then from there I started training, and I jumped in the ring and learned about indie wrestling and learned that little guys could have an impact and make an impact and live their dream too, and it just kind of took off. So I wouldn't say it was number one career choice, but it was number two, only prefaced with the asterisk that it wasn't number one just because I didn't think it was possible when I was younger.
Okay. Now, how did you come to work for XPW initially?
Back in 1999, I was hosting that radio show out in Colorado I was talking about, and I had some guests on my show, and these guys were sending people out to Steve Kern's school in Florida doing some tryouts. So I spoke to them, brought them in, and we decided that it would behoove all of us to create our own little fed in school. So I started something out in Colorado back in '99. We did that for about a year and a half, and it kind of got as big as it was going to go. Me and my partners had some conflicting points of view, and at that point I knew I had to go try to do something to make my career go to the next level. And XPW, which is one of those companies that had that exposure, and I really set my sights on pursuing them. Sending them promo packages, highlight reels, phone calls, follow-ups, and all of that. And I just kept bugging them until it was, until it was a possibility and an actuality, and until they said, "Let's do it. You can be, you can be a part of us."
Now, Ryan, the XPW locker room, it was known for quite a cast of characters. Can you talk a little bit about the atmosphere in the locker room there?
Man, the locker room at XPW was awesome, man. Just the overall experience and ambiance of every single show we did, there was just an electric feeling that was going on. We had our crew that came up from, that came down from the north, which consisted of Pogo the Clown and Vic Grimes and J.R. Benson and Ron Head and Steve Lozano. And these guys were just fun guys who liked to have a good time, liked to party, and they were just, they were nice, fun, crazy, wild guys. And then and then you had the Sabu's and the New Jacks and the Shane Douglases, who brought some we brought the stories and, and telling us stories constantly. But, I mean, it was always wild times at XPW. I mean, there was never a dull moment, except for, a post-show. There would be the few hours of dullness when people were waiting to get paid. But other than that, man, XPW experience, especially when we were on the road, was a big, giant party.
Do you have any stories from being on the road with XPW you want to share?
Yeah, my favorite story was one of the times when we were in Philadelphia and, at the arena. And we were staying at one of the hotels. I can't remember what hotel it was, but I don't know. We probably had 12 hotel rooms on the particular floor, and everyone's partying. And I'm sure there was a lot of smoke filling the hallways, a lot of loud music, a lot of drunk dudes going up and down the halls. And we got word that the cops got called. So myself, Rob Black, Vic Grimes, Pogo the Clown, Super Crazy, Juventud Guerrero, Psychosis, and Damien 666 in Halloween, we all had to jump into this van and get the heck out of Dodge. I mean, and it was hysterical because we were running down the hallways, grabbed our stuff, jumped in there. I mean, we got a bunch of big guys and a bunch of, a bunch of the Mexican dudes, and we just piled in like 12 people deep into this little minivan just to get the heck out of Dodge so the cops wouldn't go after us. Good times at XPW, but those are the old days, man.
Definitely. Now, where did the GQ Money persona come from, and were you in favor of it?
The truth is, I never actually was a big fan of the name. It wasn't something I was so into. I thought it was a little bit too cliche, and I wasn't excited about it. Essentially, after I had my initial talks with Kevin Kleinrock and Rob Black about me being brought in, we finally, I came out and visited for a show. I think it was the January show at Birmingham High School. I believe it was Payback is a Bitch. It's where Vic Grimes and New Jack kind of rekindled their feud. But anyways, I was sitting there in the crowd, like pre-show when I first got into town, and Lizzie Borden came up to me, and she just says to me as she comes up, and she's like, "Oh, you must be GQ Money." And at that point, I kind of gave a little smirk, a look of, I have no idea what she's talking about. But it was there that I was given my name. I mean, it was an unofficial introduction to what my gimmick and persona was going to be. So I was like, all right, it makes sense. I get why they wanted to call me that because I was, they always saw me dressed in the suits or with the cups, with the cuff links and the, the white colored shirt with the white cuff collar and cuffs. So that I had that GQ Money vibe, but at the same time, I always just thought the name was a little bit too cliche.
Yeah. Now, in the XPW, what were some of your favorite memories, and alternatively some of your least favorite things in the promotion?
My favorite memories are definitely the big matches I was involved in. Me and Angel had a feud that was just awesome. I mean, and as a guy who got into wrestling at 5'5" tall and never thought he'd be able to go do a profile match or be in a main event or semi-main event, mine and Angel's match, the Raw Sewage match at Liberty or Death, was one of my greatest memories of all time. I mean, when I climbed the 30-foot tower and Angel came up climbing after, and I tried to pick him up on my shoulders for like a DVD, and he countered it and put me in a sidewalk slam. Sidewalk slammed me 30 feet off the tower into the kiddie pool of raw sewage as I watched the stars get further and further away in the sky, and as we crashed through the tables in the kiddie pool of sewage, and it went up my nose, and as disgusting as it was, and as much as I was ready to puke and felt like I was going to pass out from the stench, just hearing the 1,500, 1,700 people or so chanting the holy S, was just something that I will never forget and truthfully goes down as one of my favorite all-time memories in my entire, not just wrestling career, but my entire life.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Now, who's one person that you've really learned a lot from, like someone who was sort of a mentor to you in the wrestling business?
You know, there's one person through my history in XPW who I seem to learn a lot from, and it's a name that I don't know if people would expect me to say, and it's actually the Sandman. I mean, spending some time with him backstage and listening to his stories, and I had a couple of times, I went on the road once where we were shooting some promos in Ohio with him and Supreme and spending the night with him at the hotel. And then just when we do set design and setting up for shows, and he would always contribute. And even post-match, I remember post-match when Chaos wrestled Danny Doring, Sandman just always had a lot to say and always, spewed forth a lot of knowledge. And I got to learn a ton. And actually, it was like 3-4 years ago at Cold Day in Hell when XPW came back with their reunion that my wrestling, knowledge or education took a whole new jumping level. And that was when he came back through the curtain after his match. And Sandman walks through the curtain and he's like, "That's the way you do it. Dropped an elbow and stole the whole show." And, when you hear something like that, and it really started to make sense of going, you know what? You don't have to do the crazy stuff to get the crowd to respond, and it is the use of psychology. And being a new school guy who came in with like a little flash and pizzazz and through the XPW style with extreme bumps, I was one who definitely liked to shock and awe, so to speak. And then when I finally was able to get that realization that, simpler works a lot better, I believe it's the most important knowledge I received. I received it from Sandman, and it's actually the knowledge that allowed me to come forth with my wrestling school and really create something I'm proud of and teach a way that's a little bit different than I necessarily learned.
I've actually been on the road with Sandman numerous times, so I know what you mean. Actually, I was at that Cold Day in Hell event with him.
I mean, Sandman's a genius. That's the funny thing about it. You don't expect it out of this guy, but we can pull back some clips from the Big Vision footage when he did Ultimate Insiders, the last call at the bar, and he was talking about how this was years ago already, and this was before the big real estate market crash, and he's sitting there in a promo talking about how all the subprime mortgages are going to lead to a huge collapse in the system. This was about a year and a half before it happened. Who knew that Sandman was the prophetic, profound master of knowledge in the wrestling biz?
Exactly. I know exactly what you mean. Now, I got to ask you, how did you get involved with Wrestling Society X initially, and whose idea was the Fabian Kaling gimmick?
Wrestling Society X had that natural tie to XPW. With it being a Kevin Kleinrock product and Big Vision product, there was already, I've been such a part of the family for so long with those guys that it was just, it was naturally bound to happen that they'd come to me and ask me to be a part. As far as the character, Kevin Kleinrock knew I had written a script a long time ago for a drama show, and in it, I had a character named Fabian Kaling, and he was supposed to be this mysterious character that would never be seen. But Kevin said to me, "Hey, man, I like the name, and we want to do something with the character with you where you're going to be this wild ring announcer, Circus Barker, Sideshow Barker kind of guy." And eventually, as it develops and evolves into future seasons, it was going to be revealed that I was kind of a higher power and manipulating and promoting what was going on at WSX. So they thought naturally that the Fabian Kaling name, based off of obviously the KZ Easy, or however you want to say it, any of those types of terms, that they thought it was a good fit. It's one of those interesting things because I like the name, but it's a tough character to be associated with, and a tough name because I've had a different name and established a different name before, and then here I come popping in this name, and it just did what it did, and it became a phase in my life, so to speak, of doing something a little bit, I guess, interesting. I mean, so many people disliked it that it's hard to look back at the Fabian Kaling era and the WSX times with like, I have mixed feelings about it because just the character itself, there was so many negative comments about what I did. And, I think they were unjust comments because I was just doing my job and what was asked of me.
That makes a lot of sense. So you received a lot of flack then about it? When
WSX first aired, I remember, of course, being someone who's involved in the internet and likes to read the different things and the dirt sheets and boards, I'd go check out the reviews, and the first review I read that would say something about me running around the ring wild and annoying and this and that, and I was like, oh, this person didn't like me. And then I'd read the second and third reviews, and it was the kind of same thing, and then the fourth and fifth and the 30th and 40th, and everyone was just bashing me for yelling around and screaming screaming and yelling and running and this and that. And it's like, once again, it was what I was asked to do. It's the kind of thing that on set, anytime my energy level dropped, I had the earpiece in my ear, and I had the MTV execs, the Big Vision execs, all of them just yelling at me to pick up the energy. You got to make it louder. You got to make it more hype. You got to turn it up. So I tried to give them what they wanted, and I did it to the best of my abilities. And when I watch it, I think I did a really good job. My big issue is I don't like the look of a lot of my costumes. But once again, that was a cause of my own. I had a big temper tantrum with the MTV people on the pilot because I was all decked out in the carnival circus style of dress, and then they wanted me to switch last minute to a very plain, just common look, and I wasn't too into it. And in the end, I wish I would have gotten to stay that way because it probably would have helped me a lot more in terms of my broadcasting career than dressing like a crazy freak with the eye makeup. But it was a good time, and I mean, the experience was awesome. The show was awesome, and it's just a shame that it got canceled.
What do you feel ultimately led to it being canceled?
MTV itself was going through a lot of crazy things and a lot of corporate changes. This was, once again, the time is all as the world was going through changes in terms of business and the economy, that all the companies were doing their layoffs at the point that it was airing. I think it was like almost 1,000 employees or more than 1,000 employees were let go at MTV, like in the time leading up to the WSX premiere, and that included one of their entire marketing department at one point. So I think the show is just doomed from the beginning. There was also a change in terms of the executive vice president of programming. So when the new programming director essentially came through, WSX may not have been on their priority list where it was on the previous's. So we kind of just got screwed and just lost in the shuffle.
Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, besides doing XPW and as well as the Wrestling Society X, you had a short run in TNA. What are your memories of that?
TNA wasn't my favorite time, and in fact, it was probably one of my least favorite times of my wrestling career. I relocated myself down to Nashville to try to make an opportunity happen down there, and it finally did. They brought me into a faction with Christopher Daniels, two other guys, Spider Nate Webb, and I don't know if I reveal the third name. It's always one of those others. I don't know if he likes to be revealed because he's normally a masked wrestler, but another current masked wrestler in the ROH scene, and they put us together in this faction. But they really never did anything to develop it, and it was really a shame because they didn't do anything in terms of characters or character names. We were just these cult followers and known as the followers of Christopher Daniels, and none of us had any identity, and they asked us to just stand there with our hands out and blank faces, and it was just really crazy and something that was doomed to fail from the beginning, especially because at that day and age in TNA, it seemed as if they would push people. But then the minute that those people started getting over with the crowd, they'd squash them so Jarrett can go get the main event and the main position. And it was just that it's the same thing that kind of happened. Like previous to Christopher Daniels, it was a situation where Loki was getting over with the crowd, and then all of a sudden they squashed him to Jarrett. And then Daniels was getting over with the crowd, and they brought in the followers, and we started this thing up, and then they squashed him to Jarrett. And then Dutch Mantell came in as a booker, and he completely scrapped the followers. And after about 6 weeks on the weekly pay-per-views, it was all over for us, and we were never seen again. I don't have fond memories down there. I wasn't paid very well. I would say, I can't say I was mistreated. I was treated fine, but I just remember, like, on my first show there, I'm walking around in the back, and with the reputation of me coming from XPW at that time, Bill Barons comes up to me, and he's just like, "Oh, Smiley, I hear you're taking a big bump tonight." And I look at him, and I'm like, "I am?" He's like, "Yeah, it's in the format. You're taking a big bump." So I go, and I find out, I go talk to the agents, or I think I even talked to Jarrett at that point because he was involved in the angle. And Jarrett's like, "Yeah, Smiley, we were hoping we could throw you off the balcony." And I was wondering if you'd do that without a table. And I looked at him like he was crazy. Like, you can throw me off a balcony, and you want me to land on the floor with no table? You got to be out of your mind. And I gave him this puzzled look of kind of like, I'm not really into that. I don't even have a character name. And then Nate Webb volunteered for the spot, and he, I let him take the bump. And I don't know if they looked at me that I was soft or I was difficult or I was hard to deal with, but there was no chance I was going to let them throw me off of a balcony on my first or second appearance with no character name,
and no rhyme or reason for it to be done, just because they knew I had this reputation that I've taken some big bumps. I mean, when I took big bumps in XPW, it was in profile storylines, profile matches. I was paid well. It was in front of a great crowd, and there was a reason for me to be doing it. I just felt they were trying to take advantage of me just based on a reputation, and because of that, I just never can feel, I just don't have a nice, fond place in my heart for TNA.
Now, did you get a chance to speak with Christopher Daniels a lot? Do you have any thoughts on Christopher Daniels?
Daniels is a great worker and a really nice guy. I mean, he's one of those guys who loves the business, is incredibly passionate about it, and continues to learn himself. He's the kind of guy who's going to go sit and listen to every veteran's story. Anyone who's got more experience than him, even people who have less experience, he's going to listen to their stories and, so that he can learn from their experiences and adapt them to how it's going to make him a better wrestler as a whole. He's a great guy and a great performer.
Now, did you have any interaction with Dixie Carter while in TNA, and if so, what are your feelings on her?
I didn't have too much interaction with Dixie. She kind of came in she came in and took over as I was kind of on my way out. So when Dutch came in, that was when Dixie kind of got hired, brought in on a more prolific manner. I'd met her, said hi to her, and this and that, but not too much. I do remember one of the times after I was on, after I was already off TNA, when I was in the crowd at one of the TNA events, and a bunch of fans came up and started asking me for autographs, and I just remember Dixie being like 2 rows behind me, talking to her people, like, who's that guy, who's that guy? I did have an interaction with Dixie about a year ago at Bound for Glory when I was out here in L.A., because I was trying to get her hooked up with one of my students from my wrestling school. And she kind of faded my calls, wouldn't return my calls or messages, and, my student ended up actually getting signed by WWE. He's under developmental right now down at FCW. But I went up to Dixie at the after party after Bound for Glory, introduced myself again, told her that I'd been trying to get a hold of her, get her in touch with the next big thing of wrestling. My man Kyle's 6'4", 275 pounds, former NFL, unbelievable physique. He's kind of a mixture of a Batista and a Randy Orton, with unbelievable athletic ability. I mean, he's just a superstar in the making. And I wanted to get them in touch. And I told Dixie that she dropped the ball because she didn't return my call. And it was pretty fun to kind of go see her eyes bug out when I told her that she really did drop the ball. That she had, could have had access to this unknown guy who no one's ever seen, who you really could build a company around, but she missed it because I wasn't a former WWE name or someone like that making the call.
Now, speaking of your school, what made you decide to start the Fit Pit?
Wrestling's something I'm passionate about and something I love, and they always tell you that, you got to find the kind of work that you love so that it's not work. So that, everyone tries to make a living at this wrestling game, and it's really difficult to do. So the best way for me to be able to do that was to go start a school and create a product, and create a crew of guys who have a grasp and understanding of my philosophy of pro wrestling, which is a lot different than what a lot of the typical traditional trainers have a mindset for. I'm definitely what I call a new school mind and bring a new school approach. Is I'm not necessarily looking for a school that only caters to people who want to make wrestling their life and their career, and and they live, sleep, drink it. I want to reach out to the guys who just love it and want to live the dream and have the opportunity and chance to just have fun and step through the ring and do what they've always wanted to do and never been able to do. I mean, you can grow up and you can get into any sport like basketball, baseball, football. If you want to play it, you can go find a bunch of your friends, go out onto a field, and you can play the sport. Wrestling's one of those taboo things. You're not supposed to do that. It's dangerous. It becomes backyard wrestling. So I wanted to create a school that was a little friendlier, so to speak, a little bit more mainstream, and a little bit more open to developing something fun and exciting, and something that people are passionate about going to every week, while at the same time reducing the risk of injury and trying to keep everyone safe. I mean, I'm proud to say that in about a year and a half now of us being open, we've only had one minor injury through the whole thing, through our whole training time, And I am a firm believer it's because of my training style. I do things a little differently, as I was saying, and I really try to develop each guy to their utmost potential and take them to a level that they never thought where they can be. I mean, not just as a wrestler, but improving their overall self-esteem, their confidence, their pride in themselves. I mean, it's amazing for me to see the transformation that my guys have gone through, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. I mean, I remember my original core guys coming in about a year and a half ago, and I see them now, and they're like they're just new men. I mean, they have so much more confidence than they ever had, and they have so much more just personality and charisma, because that's the other thing I do different. I focus on the character. I focus on the performance and the performer. So many other wrestling schools will teach you how to wrestle, but I teach you how to be a professional wrestler. I teach you how to be a larger-than-life, charisma-spewing, action-doing, just larger-than-life superstar presence and persona. I mean, I have a WWE sports entertainment mentality, and that's the kind of wrestling I like to push and develop.
Certainly sounds like it gives you a lot of pride when you see one of your students succeed. Now, what other kind of values do you try to instill in your students that you didn't necessarily pick up during your own training?
Well, the one thing that so many wrestlers and wrestling trainers always say is that you got to respect the business. And I think that people say that blindly without knowing what it means, and I don't think it's an accurate statement or a teaching technique that should be taught. I think the truth is that the business doesn't respect most of its wrestlers, and thus you have to take advantage of the business. So you respect the people of the business, but you take advantage of the business. Respect the worker, take advantage of the business. You're in a business, and for that reason, you're there to make opportunities happen and make the most of those opportunities. So if you blindly respect the business, all that's going to happen is you're going to get taken advantage of for years and years and years of your career. If you can actually use the business and respect the people who are in it and treat the people with respect and thus get respect given to you, you're going to have a lot more successful career instead of just blindly sitting there and doing what's told. I mean, it may make you difficult. Some promoters may think that you're hard to deal with because you speak your mind, but the fact is you're a human being before you're a professional wrestler, and the most important thing is being a respectful human being, carrying yourself with dignity, pride, self-respect, self-confidence, and walking around, with your head held up high, and not being a sleazebag or a dirtbag. I mean, there's so many wrestlers in the industry who have such low moral fiber and need to increase their moral mucil supplementation that it's the kind of thing that I'd rather my guys not make it in terms of becoming stars of the wrestling industry, but instead become better people and know that their wrestling training has something to do with making them a better person in the long run.
Now, how can listeners who are looking to be trained get in contact with you?
You can hit up the website at www.makemeaprowrestler.com. You could search for the Fit Pit Pro Wrestling School up on Facebook and check out the page there. There's always information about the events. And from there, there's a phone number that I don't know offhand memorized. The phone number's there. You can call in, leave a message. We'll get back to you and give you any information and more details that you're looking for. You could also send an email, and we get you started. I mean, it's the kind of thing that if you come in, you're going to love it. You're never going to want to stop, and it's truthfully going to be something that you'll cherish for the rest of your entire life. If you've ever had the dream, you got to take action and make action happen and make the call.
Sounds like a place that's very friendly to people that want to break in and not be pushed, too hard.
Yeah, I'm not out to kill people. The truth is we do work hard. You're going to get a hard, intense workout. You're just not going to get beat up. There's a difference. We're going to push you and physically take you to your limits and maybe even emotionally, but at the same time, I'm not going to do that by beating the ever-lucking heck out of you where you're walking home every single night with bruises and, and welts and chop marks. I mean, of course you're going to get your chops. It's part of wrestling. But at the same time, I'm not out to kill people. I mean, we all like the contact. We all like the contact. When you get into pro wrestling, you know what you're getting into, and you like the physicality of it. So I'm not saying you're not going to get chopped. You're going to have days where it's going to be tough and you're going to get hit hard. But at the same time, it's not going to kill you. You're not going to walk out of there going, oh, I feel like crap. You're going to walk out of there going, I love this. I can't wait for my next training session.
Now, from the exposure you've gotten from the promotions you've worked for, you've gotten to do motion capture and voice work for WWE video games. How did you initially get set up with that?
Man, my girlfriend at the time, Lizzie Valentine, had applied, saw an ad online that they were looking for some motion capture actors for the game. And she applied, and I applied, and she got an audition, and I didn't. But I had taken her to the audition. I was sitting in the lobby, and while sitting in the lobby, I started talking with the lady who was running, the receptionist area about wrestling and about what was going on. And she looked at me, and she's like, well, you seem to know a lot about this wrestling. How come you're not auditioning? And I was like, well, they never called me back. I set my stuff in, but no one got back to me. And she looked, and she was like, oh, man, my husband's the director. Let me get you an audition. And she brought me in. I did a cold reading, and then they called me in for the gig. And it's been 6 years now that I've been doing it, and it's got to be my favorite gig I've ever done. I mean, the wrestling shows and the companies I've worked for have been awesome, but there's nothing cooler than putting on the mocap suit and the mocap balls to be, to play WWE. I mean, I got to be Rey Mysterio in this last year's game that just came out, SmackDown vs. Raw 2011, or that's coming out, I guess. I got to be Rey Mysterio and Teddy Long. I've been Rob Van Dam in the past games. I've been Mick Foley, Mankind in past games. So I've really gotten to do a lot of cool stuff, deliver the lines, do the script, and just be a part of, making a video game. I mean, as a young guy or as a guy growing up, I mean, I'd say that's another one of those dreams of being a part of a video game. And in SmackDown vs. Raw 2006, when they wanted me to do voiceovers and my voices in the game as one of the custom voices for the create a character mode, I mean, that was the coolest thing ever because I was able to go create myself, on the looks. And then I'm playing with my voice where I'm just like, Triple H, I don't like your attitude. I mean, it was a ton of fun. And on that same year, I got to go sit in on the voiceover sessions with guys like Stone Cold and John Cena. And, I mean, it was awesome. And it continues to be awesome in each year, and hopefully again this year I'll be able to do it, but we'll see what happens. I mean, it really is the coolest gig.
Yeah, so you do get to interact with the guys that you were doing the voices of, though?
Generally, you record the voiceovers separately, but I was also working one of those years as a production coordinator on the game, so I did get to go do a lot of the voiceover sessions. I essentially got to set up a lot of the travel for the THQ and the Hydrogen Whiskey, who were the 3D design team. I got to do a lot of set up their travel, set up the recording studios, and then just make arrangements with the limos and all that for the superstars. So based on where the recordings were going on, I got to go sit in on the sessions.
That's really cool. Now, what's a rib or a road story you can share with our listeners?
Can you say that one more time? I'm sorry?
What's a rib or a road story you can share with our listeners?
Huh. One road story, I don't know if you'd call it a rib. I mean, Vic Grimes always considers it a rib gone bad that really screwed him. I don't know if it really was a rib or if it was just an oversight on his mind. But one of the times when we were leaving Philadelphia after one of our shows, we're all getting ready to go on the plane, and Vic's going through security, and Vic got stopped by security, and he's like, I don't know why I'm being stopped. And they asked to search his bag, and they went through his bag, and all of a sudden they found that he had a butterfly knife on him. I don't know if it was a switchblade or a butterfly knife. It was one of the two. Regardless, he had a knife, and he had an illegal knife at that on him. I think it was a switchblade. I don't know. I don't know which knife's illegal. But anyways, to make a long story short, Vic ended up having to stay, in jail. It was a holiday weekend, and he had to stay in jail in Philly for, 3-4 days until the holiday weekend ended, and he was able to, be released and stuff. That he is to this day, I believe, convinced that someone put the knife in there as a joke just to buck with him. And in the end, I mean, he served a little bit of time because of it. It's the good old wrestling ribs, man, the destructive ribs. It's so funny, isn't it?
It is. It's very funny. Now, what are some of your other business ventures that you can talk about?
Man, I do a lot of this and a lot of that. I do a lot of the DVD. I used to do all the DVD authoring and Blu-ray authoring for Big Vision Entertainment. So all of their wrestling releases and even WSX. I was the one who actually made the DVDs. All the FIP titles that Big Vision was putting out, all the Glow titles. I do all the authoring and menu design and stuff like that. I do that for other companies, for independent films, horror movies, and such like that. And then aside from that, man, I pursue a career of Hollywood entertainment, man. So it's just a little of this, a little of that. I've been trying to shop some television show ideas, written some scripts, and just trying to make some stuff happen out here in the, in the city of Hollywood.
That's awesome. We here at False Count Radio want to wish you the best and all that, man.
I appreciate that, man. I appreciate it very much.
Now, go ahead and plug your website one more time and your school, and we'll go ahead and wrap it up if that's cool.
Awesome, man. Go check out the website, www.makemeaprowrestler.com. Each and every month I'm doing what I can to expand it and take it to the next level. In fact, not this set of shows, but probably within the next set of shows we start promoting, we're going to start running some live webcasts of the events, try that out, see if we can get some people outside of the Cali area to get into our product, because this Sunday, September 26th, we got what's going to be an amazing show. It's the start of our 3-show trilogy. We're calling it Hearts on Fire, where the Hobo is going to take on the punk rock powerhouse Brawlin' Bo Cooper for the Headblade-sponsored fur-lined Fit Pit Pro Championship belt, and it's going to be an amazing match and an amazing show that people don't want to see, because also on that show, we got international wrestling superstar from AAA. We got Rocky Romero making his debut, not to mention the lovely, beautiful, and sexy Lizzie Valentine, plus all the Fit Pit regulars like Mario Banks, Cuba Castro, Haynes Classic, AC Spade, The Butcher, El Carnicero, and more. This is going to be a show that I'm excited about, and I can't wait to show people this version of a product that we created. I mean, it's a little bit out there, it's a little bit different, and it definitely focuses on story and character. There's going to be good wrestling too. I'm not neglecting the fact that the wrestling will be good, but it's just so much more than that, and it's an entertainment extravaganza. So check that out. MakeMeAProWrestler.com for all the information. If you want to know what else I'm up to in my personal life, go check out my site at www.iamsmiley.com.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me on. You guys rock, and I appreciate it so much.
All right. Thank you very much.